We've talked about doing a documentary on the Housing First program that we have in Rhode Island. And one of the areas that we wanted to look into was criminal justice. Because my understanding of the criminal justice system is once you've done your time and your sentence flattens, you're out.
Right.
And you can give any address that you want to give. It may not even be real, but then they'll use that as an address. Or, from what I understand, sometimes they don't even care. Once you're done with your sentence, what do they put you on a bus and send you to Kennedy Plaza? Or
Yeah.
how does that work? Do you have a sense of that?
Department of Corrections, they're mandated not to send anybody into the homeless community. Unfortunately, they're overburdened themselves. They don't have enough discharge planners to properly put people to where they got to be. So a lot of people come out of the system, out of the prison system, and they end up into the homeless situation. I see it on a daily basis. That's even tougher for people to try to get out of because they're on probation and parole. They don't want to get violated. They can't get a job because there's no jobs here.
Right.
So, I mean, it's really hard for people, especially with felons, to try to get housing. You're discriminated against, even though some organizations say you can't discriminate against, but certain things do prevent people from getting housing.
And jobs, right?
And jobs. And that's a big issue out here.
Now, I know that there was probably about 90% of the folks that came into the Housing First program had a criminal justice history and were largely homeless because they were unable to get any housing because of their history. And we were able to tell them that we have a phone that will answer if there's a problem, and we have folks that will go and advocate for other folks if they need any help or assistance around paying the rent or abiding by the lease and things of that nature. And the folks have stayed out and done well.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Housing First. I mean, it's a system that works. I mean, if any program works, well, let's see how we can expand it even to a different capacity. I said in an article before that the state sometimes is stuck on stupid. And it's so true. I mean, they just don't want to make that change to get things going. I caught a lot of flack for saying that, but I truly believe that. I mean, the system has to change, and if the state's stuck on stupid, we'll smarten up.
Now, I'd always thought, I mean, we're one of the mental health providers in Rhode Island. Was our original mission, and there are, 7 or 8 other mental health providers. If each one of them in their own catchment area took on the issue of homelessness and dealt with it in their own catchment area, imagine the kind of impact that would have.
Yeah, it would save a lot of money also.
Because we have 160 folks in our program now. And we've been operational 3 years. And it's, I mean, it's just amazing if each of the other centers could get another 160 each, depending on, proximity and the density of the population of where they're located and stuff. But there are homeless folks everywhere in this state.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the awareness comes in. You mentioned Professor Hirsch. He did a study on Housing First. Economically, it's cheaper than sheltering people. It takes a burden of people using the emergency room as a primary care physician. It takes a burden of the prison system because people aren't on the streets and they're not getting violated and going back to prison. So it's cost effective.
Right.
And these economic times, anything that saves a buck, let's start looking at that.
You would think the legislators would want to listen to that.
Yeah, you would think, but there goes that saying that I always get flack for. Sometimes they're stuck on stupid.
What advocacy can we do up at the State House in terms of folks that are advocating for the homeless? What's the best avenue to get in there, and who are the best voices up there that if we get them and bend their ear, they could be a great advocate for us? Either they're doing it now or they'd be a great advocate in the future. Do you have some names of folks that are up there, legislators, representatives?
Representative David Segal's been a very good advocate for housing. Senator Metz, Anastasia Williams. These are representatives that take housing very seriously. I mean, Tom Slater, when he was up at the State House, I mean, he's passed now. His son's taken that role. So, I mean, there are a lot of advocates out there. But in this economic times, when I was up there with lobbying just the NOP or the hate crimes bill, there's just no money. It's really tough to try to ask somebody when they don't have the money. More and more people have to get up there and state what they want. We brought constituents that are homeless, formerly homeless, actually went onto the House floor and advocated for the Neighborhood Opportunities Program. I don't think anybody at the State House ever seen that before. It was, I've always been proactive in trying to have constituent voice at the table, and I brought constituents to the State House, and they advocated for themselves, and it worked. We were successful in getting, not what we wanted, but we were successful in getting some part of the pie.
So that's how you got the $1.5 million back.
It wasn't just constituents.
Right.
It was, the only strength is in numbers. And everybody was on the same page, from executive directors to mid-management, case managers to constituents themselves. We all know that homelessness can be solved through affordable housing or permanent supportive housing.
Okay. There's just so many avenues to think about in terms of what we need, where we're going. But the bottom line is we need homes. We need housing. We need a place where people can live. And I think I saw the head of an article, it said we need to put a roof on it.
Right, and you just said the perfect word. Housing is one thing, but a home's another. I mean, it's nothing like having a home.
And for some people, a shelter is housing.
Unfortunately, yeah, I know people that have been in the shelter system for 7 to 10 years. I just can't see how people allow this to happen. We're supposed to be the strongest country in the world, but we have people living in third world conditions. And it makes me sick every day I go out to the streets. And it makes me fight even more to go out there to say this is wrong. I'm not afraid to have my voice heard. And it's a good thing that's happening. People's voices are starting to raise up also. And and hopefully people start to listen.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Exactly.
Right. And with these economic times, we were having difficulty saying, we'd love to do that, but.
Yeah, there's
but we
always
haven't
a
got
but.
the money. Right.
There's always a but. But if it's an investment that's going to save money, well, maybe let's look at it.
Yeah, it's like the Fram oil filter commercial. Pay me now or pay me later.
Exactly.
And right now, we're paying.
Yeah, this winter's going to be bad. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's going to be a tough, tough winter.
I know that the Rhode Island Coalition isn't enamored with the notion of shelters or more shelters.
No.
But you mentioned that there was an emergency shelter
task force
that you're part of.
Right, I'm on that committee.
Who and where and when and how would more beds be available if push comes to shove and there is another crisis, which I'm assuming there will be another crisis this winter? How is that going to be enacted? And do you have folks that are on the table now that say if, then we'll
Yeah, I mean, in
help?
Pawtucket, Cheryl Marshall from Access Rhode Island, she's already found a church. It'll be for 20 individuals. Woonsocket. These two cities don't have a shelter. Their emergency shelters for the winter is the only relief that people that are homeless in Pawtucket and Woonsocket have. Homelessness ends when the shelter closes. That's not true.
Right.
That's not true.
So in Woonsocket and Pawtucket, they're open only seasonally?
Correct.
Okay.
And in Providence also. 2 years ago, we only had 15 beds in Providence. Last year, we were able to secure 51, over 3 times as many. And all 51 of them beds were taken. This year, of course, it's funding again to see where we're going to stand and where we're going to open up this winter. That's why the state of Rhode Island wanted to meet in September. We were very vocal to say, no, this is a problem that's going on now. Let's prepare ourselves. Even if we don't need the shelters, but at least we're prepared. I don't want to be sidetracked and wait until September and then all of a sudden we have a big catastrophe on our hands. We're trying to stop that.
I knew a person that used to go into the ACI every winter when it got cold.
Yep.
He would do some kind of minor crime, get arrested, and taken to the ACI for 3 months, 4 months, and get out with a forced savings plan. His check would have gone to a P.O. box. So he'd come out, but then if he needed to again, he'd have to go back in again. I wonder how much the ACI's census increases during the winter also, due to the fact that a lot of folks are homeless. Do you have any sense of that?
That's always been a big, I don't know if it's a myth or it's reality. Some people do that. Some people will go into treatment. That happens a lot.
Yep.
But for someone to say that I want to go to the ACI for shelter, I haven't seen that out in the streets.
Okay, all right.
I
It's not the idea of a good time.
No, prison is prison.
Yeah, right.
Prison is prison. I mean, for someone to say that's 3 hots in a cot, but your freedom's gone.
Right.
I think somebody would take a chance on using the shelter system or a tent. That's something I've never seen out there. That's always been a myth.
It must have been an enigma or...
Yeah, it's something
an
I've always
aberrant
heard out there.
situation.
I just never ran across someone that says, I'm going to go to the ACI so I don't get cold.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that. I've heard of the stories, but I haven't seen it firsthand.
Yeah, okay. All right. In terms of, everyone out on TV land now is probably wondering, why do people become homeless? What are some of the things that cause homelessness for folks? Yes, it's a terrible thing, yes, and I could just imagine people listening to us now and thinking, well, why don't they pick themselves up by their bootstraps and go raise chickens or get a paper route or do something to earn money and have a place to live? And so what are some of the things that you've seen that have caused
Well, the number one cause is loss of income.
Okay.
That's the number one cause. Right now in Rhode Island, to afford fair market rent, you have to work 2.5 minimum wage jobs. So you're going to work 100 hours at minimum wage just to afford a roof over your head. Either that or you got to get a job at $20 an hour just to afford fair market rent.
Which is about $1,000 a month, right?
Correct. I think it's almost...
Plus utilities.
Correct. Yep. That's not counting your cable or if you want all them little extras.
Right.
It's $1,000 a month at $20 an hour. I don't see them jobs in the state of Rhode Island right now at $20 an hour. If you do get a minimum wage job, you got to work 100 hours just to pay your rent. That doesn't count your food. I mean, we need jobs in this state. I mean, that's going to be a key thing to get people into housing. We've got to get people into housing so they're more stable to get that job. If you're living in the shelter, it's very hard for you to go to a job interview, to be back at the shelter if you do get a job because you do have time restrictions. That's why housing is so key. That's why Housing First is such a key issue to try to end homelessness. Put people into housing, get them stable so they can get a job or get the help that they need, either be by addiction or mental disability or duly diagnosed. Get people stable and get them back on their feet so they can get going on with their lives.